Hope that's okay, everybody. We're going to record, and so that those who missed it can watch it through. And maybe Caitlin will talk to you afterwards. But we were thinking about maybe using this as some marketing collateral if we get some good. We will definitely get some good tidbits here, but let's see what we can do with them. Okay, well, we've got a good crowd to start, so I think let's go ahead. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, there's Kate. Haven't seen you for a while. Welcome, Kate.
Michelle,
Hello, how are you?
so good to see your face.
I know you too. Oh my goodness, we'll have to catch up after.
Yes, we will. But yes, I'm here to support Jen. I knew she was good. She mentioned she was going to be on the panel today. And so I said,
Oh,
I will make
wonderful.
it.
I love that. Excellent. So good to see you. All right, Alex is here. Okay, I was going to get started, but then I got excited about all the people joining.
Everybody's popping on real quick. That's a good thing.
I know. Well, let's give everybody a little time to settle and then. Alex, how are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Good, good. We're ready for this. Oh, this is wonderful. I'm so excited with the attendance. I know it is the back end of summer and everyone's trying to get that last vacation in, especially if you've got school age kids, or maybe you're avoiding going on vacation until school has gone back and then you'll go. But thanks for making the time this afternoon to come talk with us about selling change. So today, as we've promoted, we have three panelists that we invited to come to a discussion about the art of selling change, both from an internal perspective and from an external perspective. So we'll cover both aspects as much as we can. I've got a set list of kind of questions here that I've shared with the panelists so that they could prepare a little bit, but we are very open to additional questions, or if you'd like to come on the line and share your perspective as an answer to that question too, right? We'll just ask you not to come off and mute and interrupt, but rather just in the chat, place your question or your comment, and I'll be sort of moderating and flowing through as we go. So to introduce myself, I'm Michelle LaRue. I am on the board for, we're founding member of the board for the ACMP Great Plains chapter, and that's kind of who this, this discussion is under. And so I have a background in change management through and through, from Big Four consulting days through to now owning my own change management consultancy. And so I do independent change management consulting. And so been working closely with quite a lot of you on the line here who are helping to get the Great Plains chapter off to a good start. We've had a couple of events. I think this is our first panel discussion. So give us your feedback and let us know what other types of events you want to see and partake in or lead. We're also looking for some volunteers, so we can cover a bit of that at the end. But for now, I think I'd love to move to the panelists and ask each of them to just briefly introduce themselves. And let's start with Erin.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Erin Aliano, and I am a independent consultant. I own my own independent consulting group. Four Leaf Solutions is the name of my group. And I am working currently in a software implementation with a contract organization, and I'm helping with the change management as a change lead. It's a little bit different from my other experiences. I'm actually the lead within that software implementation, helping to implement with change managers that are in-house with the organizations. I started the ACMP Great Plains about 2 years ago. I feel like Beth and I, Krishna was part of that hoorah and too, of getting some acknowledgement in the Great Plains area and bringing ACMP a little bit more presence in this area. So a lot of that that work stemmed from just a long history of change management. I formally became certified in change management in 2019, working with Farm Credit Services of America here in Omaha. Prior to that, I was in social justice work federal and nonprofit work. Definitely making a lot of change happening there. And then I think you wanted a fun fact or a fun
Just something personal. Let us know a
Yeah.
little bit about you.
Yeah, we just got back from vacation, our vacation. We went to Orange Beach, Alabama, which is a hidden gem. If you haven't had an opportunity to go, we took our family down there. And I would say, I shared this on LinkedIn. I walked on the beach every morning and just seeing the tides come in, you can't not help but think of the number of changes that happen overnight through the tides coming in and then actually throughout the day with the different waves of happening. So always looking for those different opportunities to kind of think how our work, just comes and is necessary because of all the constant change that's happening in the different industries that we represent. So yeah, and I'll pass it off to Nate if you don't mind, Michelle.
Good.
Hi, everyone. Nate Raymeyer. Thanks for having me here today. I have the privilege of being the founder of Peak Advisory Consulting. We're a human capital and change management advisory firm. I'm based in Kansas City, and I started my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers in their people and change practice doing HR transformation and change management work. Was there for 6 or 7 years and then went to build the change and transformation capability for a Workday partner. So it was all HR transformation and change management around Workday implementations. Did that for 4 years. And then this is Peak's 8th year. So we're a small team spread out across different parts of the country doing HR transformation and change management consulting. Fun fact. So Aaron mentioned changes overnight. We had a ton of rain in Kansas City here a week and a half ago. Overnight, my basement flooded. So the changes that come with managing where your office is, this is not my normal office space, what you do with your kids and their toys and the cats. So changes everywhere, personally and professionally, and excited to be with you here today. Thank you.
Goodness, sorry about the basement.
That's all right. Nothing that can't be replaced. So
Yes, good.
all good shape. Thank you.
All right. How about you, Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bolig, native here to Kansas City. I am not a consultant. I've never wanted to be a consultant, so I am always in awe of consultants, and I learn a lot from all of you. I've always worked in organizations as a full-time employee. I've been in the change management space for a long time, since it was called business integration, then got certified in 2011, 2012, and have remained doing change management because I love it. It's been interesting to see how things have evolved over time. You can always tell the industry is in a certain space. Like at one time it was, how do we integrate into a PMO? Now it's all about AI. So it's been fun to see those pockets of interest over the years and be engaged in those things. A point of interest. Well, Nate, I feel your pain. In January, when we had the deep freeze, we had a pipe burst, and we just now, it impacted all 3 levels of our house, and we just got the repairs almost finished. So I'm hoping it won't take you as long.
We're in much better shape, it sounds like, that.
Okay, well, and just something of interest, my husband and I really enjoy hiking, and we try to take a nice 2-mile walk most days, except when it's 100 degrees outside. So
Yes. Walking's kind of tough at the moment until the sun's gone down at least. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you all. Well, I thought let's get to know our audience a little bit here. So if you wouldn't mind, could you let us know in the chat, are you internal, external, working in change, not working in change? Just give us a little something in the chat so we can kind of gauge what the audience makeup is. So we got Alex internal, and Jordan too, and Krishna. Oh, Tam's went very quickly there. I think you can all probably read it. I'm trying to look at the participants of the chat at the same time. We've got, okay, lots of internal, couple external. Okay. And then we got Beth. All right, so it looks like mostly internal. Interesting. Okay. My assumption was mostly external, so we will we will, well, not based on who was here, just based on, you know, preparing for the session, but who would come. But we can equally attend to both. So that's great. And then perhaps in the context, you know, whether you be internal or internal or external, and I'm just framing it that way. Sorry if that offends anybody. I hope not. That's just the simplest way in my mind to sort of categorize it. But what is your biggest challenge when it comes to selling change, whether that be a new piece of work or a piece of work to an external client, or whether that be an opportunity that you see in your internal role that you're trying to influence or convince stakeholders to pursue? So a challenge in selling change. Maybe that's too difficult a question to start out, too tricky a question to start out with. All right, cost to value, we'll talk about that. Anyone? Is your code cost? I'm guessing it's cost and change resistance in older organizations. Absolutely. I think we all resonate with that. The difference between project, change, and OCM. And Kate's biggest challenge, seeing it to understand why. Yes, we'll talk about that too, Kate. Early, always a little pain point for change practitioners, helping people understand what it can do and that it's just more than comms and or training, and in the work that can be done just as well by the project team. Okay, I think that's getting back at the difference between project and change management again. Okay. All right, great. Well, let's start. And I think we're going to hit a lot of these points. And like I said, if you've got commentary to make throughout, or if you want to ask a specific question, either pop it in the chat, or, you know, I'm keeping some time back towards the end for either live questions or questions from the chat. Okay, so I thought we could start with, most of you talked a little bit about your journey into change, but think about that in the context of selling change. So is there, earlier in your career or change journey, is there a small win or some momentum that you recall that really is a memorable event for you in your change career? So let's start with Nate this time.
Sure. This was a tough one to actually think about because so many projects are all change related projects. I think for starting Peak, we had reviewed a recruiting function as an assessment and then helped to implement the changes that came with that assessment. And so then that one assessment kind of turned into multiple HR transformation, which are just really change projects focused for HR teams and HR programs. So I think that was the one that's probably most memorable, just given the start of Peak's existence.
And was there like a specific something that you remember from that win, from the like you convinced them for that first assessment, or you
it was
had a
amazing.
breakthrough in that space in some way?
I think just a lot of the time having somebody from the outside looking at something and providing suggestions, recommendations, observations. When folks are so close to it, they may not see the opportunities that are there, but also recognize the true change impact that's needed. So just being able to spell that out and show folks, I think can go a long way in some of those early wins, especially.
All right. So, okay, so the assessment approach. And Erin, how about you?
Yeah, I think I go back to like my first gig that I got as an independent consultant as my my first win, and it my change journey started like long before working with nonprofits and in the government as change as a training specialist, or trying to make change with processes and always leading to training. But my first win as an independent consultant was with a nonprofit executive director, and she was new to the Omaha area. She was new to working with as an executive director, new to leadership. She had been an individual contributor, did really well in her industry, and was looking for a partner. And I think a lot of times with change management, that partnership of being able to, like you said, Nate, bring them up out of the weeds and say, here's the bigger picture, and I'm going to be your partner in helping to direct you in that way. That partnership was my first win with her, and helping her to recognize where she was having progress, because she was feeling like she was just hitting brick walls with the community, with trying to figure out how to manage her staff, with her board and building relationships, like all of those different things. So really that small win was partnering with her to help understand where she was at, what she wanted to do, where she wanted to go, and then showing her that progress on a regular basis and helping her to navigate the next step in all the different directions that she wanted to put focus in. And it was great. It was a good opportunity to be able to do that. And I think what it boils down to is really getting those wins with that partnership and creating relationships with the leaders that you're supporting.
And how did you know her? Did you know her from previous work or?
It was a previous board member of hers that is my friend, who said,
Yes.
I think that you would really benefit from a change leader, and helping you to make inroads with all these different areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you were connected by somebody mutual,
Yeah.
and yeah, okay. All right. No, that's great. Thank you for that.
Back to that relationship building, right?
Yes, yes. And we should well, Beth says, how did you get her attention? How did you get her to really listen to you?
I I think one, just listening to her as an individual executive director of a small nonprofit. It's small, it's hard. You don't have a whole lot of people that you can confide in. Your board, is asking questions that you have to show up and be transparent. You might have places that you need to navigate that you can't, openly communicate with a board member. You can't try to problem solve with a community member. Your staff, you also have that dynamic with your staff that you have to show your leadership. And I think having that confidence and confidentiality with her, and actually
Yes.
listening to her and helping to brainstorm some of those ideas, is where I built trust with her.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's more you listening to her than getting her to listen to you.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
well done.
And I understood. I mean, as a leader, she had her vision down, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's more about how she was going to navigate and execute on that vision, right? And what resources and support she would need. Yeah. No, I've seen that play out a lot of times, or even when not necessarily at the beginning, right? You might come in and then you start developing relationships with people that then seek that counsel and value that relationship and confidentiality, and then that helps you continue to extend yourself in that organization, right? As you're um, building more and more relationships with more and more people in it.
I think warm handoffs is really an excellent way of, getting that buy-in from others. You've been successful with other people and helping to support them in their leadership, and then it's that net promoter score. They're
Yes.
will turn to their friend who they're having coffee with, or as a former board member wanting to support the organization still, and knowing that that transition is is happening and they needed some expertise.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll talk more about this in a bit, but I want to get to Jennifer and see what small or early win you can remember, Jennifer.
Sure. When the change management team at the time, business integration, shifted to change management, because when it was business integration, truly it was just focused on operations. And when we shifted to org change management, that really broadened our reach. We were engaged in the projects and portfolios. We were always a work stream within projects that was just, embedded. And then it really, because of that, it helped to educate the leaders within the organization who were attached to those projects about change management and its value. So that really was a neat shift to see. And then it just continued to grow, and we continued to embed as the PMO itself grew and developed to the point where change management, the view of change management was always brought in to the portfolio meetings where all the decision makers were. So it was fun to be at that early stage where we made that shift and had just a small purview to a broader reach and got embedded as work streams. And then over the 8 years that I was, this was in Chicago, the 8 years that I was there, by the time I left, we were embedded, into those big decisions. They put a people focus into those big decisions. So that was really fun to see.
Yes. No, it's exciting when that happens. And I know it was a question earlier, so I thought maybe we would sort of combine a couple questions I had here and talk about, because there's this theme about getting senior leadership buy-in for change resource or change support, and then doing that early enough into the project. So I wondered, maybe Nate, we'll go back to you. Could you talk about how, specifically, right, how, if I assume this is in your case happening too, right, that you've got to convince other or influence other senior leaders. Maybe there's someone who's a supporter of yours, but now you've got to go to the person with the purse strings or whatever it might be, right? What language and how are you describing the value of change to their initiative, their program, and doing that early?
Yeah, it's definitely a constant battle. I think a lot of the time, at least in my experience, some of those folks can view change as the fluff or afterthought or, oh crud, what are we going to do here as we get closer to rolling out whatever that is. And if you've got that contact internally who may not be the buyer, like you said, Michelle, with the budget, we always look to be that partner for whomever we may be supporting internally and provide them with some of the talking points, like what would happen if you don't do anything, not to like scare them, but also at the same time, you do have to scare a little bit because I think the folks who haven't been through a poor change initiative cannot really understand truly what might go wrong and what some of the risks are. And so that's typically we try to support whoever might be internally to give them some of those talking points. As a consultant from the outside, at the same time, we try to maybe walk away or at least not like push too hard. And typically these folks get into a bind and then come later and say, so we're in a little different position externally versus internal folks. Like that is your job of trying to push this and support this. And so I recognize it might be a position of privilege sometimes being from the outside versus working through some of those challenges inside. But a lot of the time, some of the just not scare tactics, but a little bit of that to help show what could happen if nothing is done.
Yeah. And are you keeping in touch with people throughout that? So if it's kind of the sale didn't happen at that point, but you kind of can
Yep.
see it's not going to go down a very likely successful path, are you
Yeah.
regularly, what are you doing to keep those relationships or connections up?
Yep, that's a great point. Frequently, I mean, not overly burdensome, but definitely doing some check-ins. Part of why I started Peak was just to truly care and partner with our clients and like genuinely hope that something like this is going to go well. But also, if they ever get into a bind, they want them to know that they can call us and we can be there to help.
And do you have any sort of hot tip or messaging suggestions on that early piece, right? How do you, what's your sort of go-to scare tactic, if I could ask that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we all know here that change is the more you can do early and often, the better. Like some of the folks said, it's not just training at a go live or a rollout. It's not just communications. And change impact can go a lot of ways. And so upfront, identifying what those change impacts are and like we'll get into it maybe, but just knowing what some of the quantitative and qualitative impacts and negative impacts could be to paint that story. And so if it's something that's going to maybe degrade employee engagement or people might leave or whatever some of those negative behaviors might be, making it true and real to the scenario goes a long way versus just purely a hypothetical what if.
Yes, or a generic, or throwing those project failure statistics out there, right? Love seeing those on slides still.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you. Aaron, anything to add there before we, because I'm conscious I want to shift to internal as well, but let us know if you.
I think, listening for the problem that they're trying to solve, that what's the most important thing for them. And as Nate was speaking, it reminded me the organization that hired me and I'm working for right now, it's a software implementation. And they hired me a year out from their go live. That was their criteria. Like, okay, we're a year out. Within a couple months, they moved their go live date, and I raised my hand to the project manager. I was like, does that mean like you're gonna put me on the shelf and then bring me back, in 6 months? Because how does this work? And he was like, absolutely not. And I said, good, because I would love to work on adoption of communication. Like I can see a challenge that the communication is not happening the way that you want it to, like super early. Let's work on just getting people to come to your SharePoint site, come to your webinars, come to your demos and showcases, and participate and engage and ask questions and really get that two-way street going for the rest of the adoption work that we have to work on. But let's build habits and the things that we can really improve upon. So even like Nate was saying, you can see something, that you can focus on small with them and build that trust, show how it works. And then hopefully they come back and see, they start bringing you in a little bit earlier and earlier so that you're not trying to solve problems at the 11th hour.
At the last minute, yeah, which we've all been there, all done our best. No, yeah. And Jennifer, I know you've made great strides at Blue KC, right?
Yes.
With the from years ago, just for everyone's, I used to also help out at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City in the change space. So in the early days. So
Michelle, you were a part of that, as is Kate. So
yes. So maybe you could share with everybody what you're doing now in sort of terms of leadership buy-in and getting on programs early.
Sure, absolutely. It's been a journey, that's for sure. Helping leaders understand it's the value proposition of change management. And it's very similar to Aaron and Nate, right? When you talk about your secret weapon, you talk about really, for me, I want to understand from you as the decision maker, what is your experience with change management, and start from there. And then maybe try to paint a little bit different picture than what they've experienced. And then secret weapons are, talking about resistance and the risk to your project success if resistance goes unchecked. And this is truly my weapon of choice is, and it's a Tim Creasy thing, it's what percent of project success depends on people doing something differently. And I'll sit there and just wait for an answer. And if it's crickets, I'll prompt, is it 50%, 75, 100%? And then they'll start, engaging. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, the light bulb goes off. And if it's 75% or higher, they're on board. And then, it's like we start talking and planning and, so that truly has, that's my weapon of choice because it is truly effective. But then also, resistance management, because a lot of times if past projects where the experience has been less than successful, then we talk about what degree was that lack of success because people were not sustaining the behaviors or the mindsets that you expected. Again, it's reinforcing that those people's success factors. Have you even identified what those people's success factors are, and we can help you do that. So that's been my conversation just within this year, because Blue KC's culture doesn't really think that way, but it's definitely gaining interest. And it definitely raises eyebrows like, oh, and I've seen sponsors actually lean in. And that truly has been the engagement moment. And then, just also helping them understand that the fact that how your people are going to experience this change is shaping how they're going to respond to and trust you moving forward. And it also influences, to what degree that they're going to engage in other changes, moving forward. So how we help you navigate this change is really going to help you as a leader as well in your organization.
The right way and gain that trust. Yes. Okay.
Those have been pretty powerful conversations. So
yes. No, that's amazing. I love the perspective from both ends, right? And you've got the opportunity internally as well to just reach out to whoever you want to reach out to, right? And they may or may not give you the time, but you've got a lot of access internally, right? And you've got a lot of examples that you can take from one leader to another leader, especially an organization of that size, right? Maybe in a huge organization, this change program success was not as visible to that leader, but in Blue KC, everybody's seen everybody's successes and failures.
Yeah, it's true. And that's an interesting point because this is the smallest organization I've worked for. It had been larger organizations.
Yeah.
So because of that, yes, I have easier access to leadership. And Kate, thank you, because she helps facilitate that a lot of times as well. But those new leaders that come in, we have a very interesting combination of leaders who've been there forever and then new leaders as well. And so very different perspectives and very different experiences regarding how they lead and navigate through change and how they think about and experience change. So that's been fun to see because I get to come alongside and meet them where they're at. Regardless of where they're at, I get to meet them there, and then we move them forward.
Thank you. Great perspective and insights there. All right, so I saw a few times in the chat that we had this theme around cost to value. So I thought maybe, Erin, if we could start with you, could you talk a little bit about how, perhaps if you're trying to sell or influence leaders, in terms of the value of change management when they're a very sort of metric heavy or ROI focused type mindset. Have you been in a situation like that, and what tactics have you deployed there?
Yeah. So the example that I think of, I was really lucky when I was an FT at an organization to have two senior vice presidents very engaged in change management. And they were trying to increase growth because they were both in sales. And so they knew the metric that they were looking at for 5% growth of, the growth of sales that they wanted. Um, they knew that behavior had to change with the professionals that they were working with. But I took them back to the data and I asked them, you tell me what are the top 10 things that are behavior changes that folks need to do? Is it a mindset shift? Is it actually you need to stop doing this and you need to start doing this? How are we going to do this? And they went to their vice presidents and it was like a whole group effort. Their vice presidents talked with their sales leaders and their sales service persons and the group and said, we want to make this successful. Let's get your feedback on what those behavior changes are going to need to be, what mindset shifts that we need to have. And they all contributed. We had 7, and we did some self-assessment of where we at as a branch office and where are we at in our leadership's self-report of what they were seeing for their teams and making that change. This is all the awareness and desire and training had happened, but we really needed that, ability and reinforcement phase to get in. And how are we going to measure that success and say, hey, we've made it? I asked that how long do you want this to happen? When do you want to start seeing these results? Like, it's not a typical software implementation that you can say, 45 days, we're going to look into the technology and be able to see these changes and feel good about our adoption rate. So they set a date of 6 months that they wanted to see it. We reduced that to 3 months where people were feeling confident because of the conversations they were having. They understood their expectations. They were aligned in what they were trying to do and trying to achieve together. And that was over a 5-state region. And it was just bringing them back to those numbers. And it started with them saying, this is the growth that we want to see. And them telling me the numbers that they were looking for. And I was like, that doesn't really mean a whole lot, except for I know that will bring in money for this organization. But let's stick with the data-driven information and start doing the analysis and the assessments and really helping people to understand what the expectations are after they get out of training. They're back at their desk and they're expected to make these behavior changes. So I think
Sounds like
was,
a lot of measurement and data collection and monitoring.
yeah, but it was good. And it was the nerd part of me that loved that.
Love that. I know, having some good hard evidence.
Yeah. And then being able to see in the next annual report that we achieved that growth goal. That was
Amazing.
high fives
Very
all around.
rewarding. Yeah.
And then them, the CEO, of course, everybody's reading, the board's reading that annual report. Everybody's seeing that. They don't ever see the work that we're doing alongside those leaders, but they're definitely our cheerleaders in helping people understand.
And then I assume you now have that in your bank, right? So you go to your next client and you've got all that data numerics to say, well, at my last client, we were looking to achieve this and we implemented that, and these were the incremental increases or percentages, adoption rates, etc. So I can imagine that's
and the experience, the ability to be able to say, and I think even getting the buy-in from the folks who are being asked to change, like what are the behaviors that need to happen? Because it going in, when you're in training and you're understanding what's being asked of you differently, but really putting the focus on those behaviors and what we could do to help support them, and leaders knowing that they are going to coach to those changes too, right? That they're going to be held accountable.
Yes, no, that sounds like some good clarity there, as opposed to lots of other programs that we work on.
I know we say so much we don't want just to focus on the communication, but really the clear communication and understanding expectations, holding people accountable are all part of it.
And using that same measure and that same language throughout consistently is so helpful for everybody.
Very much so. Yeah.
Great. And Nate, I wondered, from a value perspective on your end, when you're selling, how are you, could you also give us a story or an example of perhaps a very sort of, ROI driven leader that you're trying to sell to, and you're trying to evidence or showcase the value of change and, basically justify the spend, right?
Yeah. A lot of what Aaron just shared, we do in terms of like asking, interviewing lots of folks, not just champions on the project, like what does success look like from the outset, identify some different key performance indicators or metrics and the timing to hit those. A lot of the time when we're doing our work and the change is part of some broader HR initiative, there are changes that can come from the process changes, from the way technology might be used. And so that's a situation where whether it's time savings or time like reallocation of folks, like really getting a little more tactical into some of the impacts from a process of technology or, like Aaron said, behavior change, and look at that holistically, because you can, not everybody's behaviors are going to change, but there can also be some other ways to achieve those. So kind of having a broader range across people, process, technology to have different levers to drive some of that ROI has been something that we help our clients with as well.
And then I assume you're sort of suggesting that your expertise, right, and your resources expertise can do internally what they potentially don't have the resources or capacity to do, right? And that's why you're recommending this approach and path and the spend on this external consultancy.
We try to assume the best of what an internal capability can be, but we're there to help and at least show that there is additional support that we can provide. Sometimes, especially for internal change teams, and you all know, you're probably getting pulled in a ton of directions. And so a lot of the time for us, it's a little bit more of, hey, we'll supplement because you already have a lot going on and we partner well with the team, versus an outside consultant coming and doing something to us. That's just another way we try to show up as partners externally, versus, hey, we can do this better than you, because that's not always the case.
Yeah, and that's how I've been securing a lot of my work as well. It's sort of supporting either the start of a new change management capacity or supporting one in its early days or a mature one. But
Exactly.
yeah, especially in the market at the moment, I think there's some opportunity for supporting teams that need that help on a temporary basis. Good.
Definitely.
Okay, so then I thought we could maybe just talk a little bit about the age-old PM versus CM, right? And if you're getting not pushback or resistance, but just commentary, like why, oh, I assumed our project management team would take care of that. Why should I bring in change, additional change support to help deliver what you're saying? I thought the training team were going to take care of that, or we have this internal comms team, they'll take care of that, right? So any war stories or insights to share from that kind of scenario?
I can start. Yeah, I use the ProSci triangle with the sponsor and the project manager, change manager. I was working with a program manager, and they were moving into SAFE, and she was the release train engineer, but she didn't have that title. She was just trying to get all these folks to move into SAFE at the same time. And I ended up printing off a bigger than 8 by 11 poster.
Large.
And she and I had a lot of heart to hearts, but I was like circled her her area, and I was like, this is you. This is me. And I am here to help you. We are partners. And we had really good conversations, candid conversations about how I was her partner, and I wasn't trying to move into her space. I wasn't, and I think that's how she felt because she had never worked with a change
Yeah.
manager. And that it was such a benefit. Still friends with her. I just had coffee with her last month. See her at Christmas time, like really paid off in being able to understand how we could work and benefit each other, and where I needed to be and where I didn't need to be too. That was really helpful. Where we had trust with each other to be able to work with and make it successful. I think that's the biggest thing that I've always had with project managers is I don't want to do your job just as much as, you can do your job, but you're spread so thin, like, let me help you. And as soon as she had that light bulb go off, like, oh, you're going to handle all the other stuff that I usually have to do. You got it.
Yeah. And I've personally seen a big shift in the last 2, 3 years where PMs are very actively, requesting change management support, right? And they are, so they're at a much generally, or certainly in the organizations I've been working with, at a much better awareness level about what it is, and maybe a few miscommunications, but any sort of, and it doesn't have to be you, Erin, maybe Jennifer or others, but any kind of scenario where maybe the leader that you're trying to secure the work, right, internally or externally, is making assumptions that PMs can do this work, right? Have you got language or tactics that you use there to sort of explain the differences and benefits between the two?
For internal, something that I've found very helpful is it's just a one slide visual that demonstrates it has different swim lanes. At the top is a framework. We use ADCAR in Blue KC. And so that's at the top. Underneath that is OCM and basically our framework where we use, a 3-phased framework. That's underneath. Underneath that is the project lifecycle framework that we use, and that's, got its different phases. Underneath that is the training framework. And basically the objective of that slide and that visual is here's how we all work through the project lifecycle together. We don't have one going over here, one over here at different times. We are all coordinated and we all move through together. And that has been very helpful to give the PM, the project manager, the program manager, a sense of relief that there are some things that they don't have to do, as well as, oh, these things are being taken care of. That's great. But it then is also a tool in that conversation to say, now that you understand that, I need to be engaged in your weekly status reports, your project meetings, whether it's technical or business, because I am always assessing and listening for any of those changes. Sure, I do my risk assessments and my people impacts assessments, but I need to be engaged. And I'll tell you, right after that conversation, a lot of times suddenly my calendar is blown up because they get it. But that visual is really helpful. It also helps them understand just the process of as a PM, how do I bring training into this? Now I understand how OCM's engaged. And so it just helps them be better able to understand how we fit into the entire project lifecycle from beginning to end. So that's been really helpful. And then I want to step back a little bit and encourage the internal folks when it comes to your previous question about value and measuring success, or how you frame that up. That's something that I'm engaged in right now. And I know a lot of times that can seem difficult, but what I'm doing with, it's within a department, and I'm really working with the leadership team within that department to early on understand, as we're trying to understand what are these changes and what are the impacts to people, you can start to understand what are those people priorities. what matters, what are the priorities for success, whether they're, project related KPIs, which is great and always needed. But then there's some people success factors like cross collaboration. How do we break down silos, and not just for this project, but moving forward? Well, it takes people to do that. So we've identified at least 3 to 5 people factors. And I bring that into the sponsor meeting regularly. So I continue to pull that thread through. That's just always on the agenda. And we don't just talk about it. We put plans and action items around that. And then I come back and say, hey, how did that go? So are we meeting our objective of breaking down those silos? So that's just one example. And then from a project level perspective, I always start with the case for change, and we engage in, the what, why not, all that. But I also ensure that we have objectives and goals. And then how are these people dependencies aligning to those objectives? So are we, how is this behavior going to, over time, influence and impact this big project objective that is reducing abrasion across, the providers? And so we're getting ready to focus on that. So team A, what is one behavior that you really want to hone in on that is going to help reduce this abrasion? And we're going to clearly identify that behavior. Like you said, Erin, you as a leader are going to coach to that so that it's very clear. And we're going to assess this over time. We're going to time bank it. And so we're getting ready to do that. So I know internally that there's other ways, to really help bring all that together to help others realize the value of change management, specifically those success factors. And Erin, yes, I use the PCT as well, and
Yes.
really hone in on the middle. What does success look like? So I just wanted to bring that in.
No, thank you for adding that. Very insightful. And we do have a couple of requests for that visual that you mentioned. So if you're happy to share that, we can get that to Caitlin, and Caitlin can get that out to everybody who registered. So thank you so much. Well, I'm just watching the time whiz by. I've got a ton of questions still. I know probably in the chat people have questions, so I thought maybe I'll abandon my list. We'll go to the audience. If there is anybody who has a burning question for one of the panelists, sort of raise your hand now. Maybe we'll have time for 2. And then I've got a few wrap-up messages and I want to close on time. So anybody have a burning question? I just wanted to give you the opportunity to ask. Raise hand or come on the line.
I did, and then I've gotten some responses in the chat as well. So there's a bit of a discussion going on there. So thank you very much for those who gave me some advice. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Okay, well, then I will ask one more question to each of the panelists. And I wanted to ask about your approach to selling change over time, and how that's evolved, and what you might tell your younger self or a version of your younger self about selling change. Maybe we'll go with Nate to start.
I do think that picking up on what I had shared earlier of just being willing to step back if they're not quite ready, versus trying to pressure somebody or some group to do something. Again, as a external working with clients, sometimes if it's really hard to sell a change project, it's probably not maybe going to be the funnest work. And so to the extent we can try to choose our opportunities, it's not always like that, but that is one thing that personally, as a consultant, early days, it'd be like, just whatever we can do to get a project.
Wouldn't that work?
Something. And I know, again, like that's not always the case internally, but for a lot of you, it sounds like you've established yourselves internally, and to the extent you can also kind of choose who the folks you would like to work with more than others internally. I think that's one that I've grown in over the years.
Excellent. Thanks. Erin?
I think my earlier was more academic, more like, I'm going to show you the psychology around it, and then you're going to get it, and you're going to want to work with me. Where now it's more, just like I said, meeting them where they're at. It's more relationship based. I can, listen to what you've done, what you've tried to do, try to relate to them where they're at in their leadership, and help them to make that next safe step, or what's the next right thing to do, to help their project be successful. Even if it's something that they're suggesting that I think, oh gosh, okay, we can try that. I would
Yes.
want to do this, but try to get them, to build their own confidence in moving the work forward, and engaging in that way. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I love both of those answers. Anything to add, Jennifer?
No, I think there's a common theme. Meet folks where they're at. I
Yes.
think that you get the most, everybody gets the most out of that approach. I'm a firm believer in that. It's far less about, the theories and the frameworks, and those are important, but those are appendix, right? And then really just something for me is, as I've practiced OCM for so long, it truly is an art and a science. And so as I've mentored, change professionals, young change professionals over the years. And that is always, a neat shift to see, because they start with the science because it's all they know. But then as you gain experience, you bring more of that art into it. And that's truly helpful.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you so much to all three of you for coming today. I think we covered a lot of ground, and I hope I got a lot of insight and examples and tactics from this conversation. So I hope many of you did too. Please let us know your feedback. Let us know if you like these sessions, if you find them engaging, if you want more, less, something else, just email me or Caitlin, and also happy to have conversations at any point. We did also, so thank you. I'm just sorry, I'm so conscious of the time. A big thank you to Jennifer, Erin, and Nate for taking the time out to do this and to prepare for this. We really appreciate it, and we really value your support as we get the ACMP Great Plains chapter off the ground and running. So thank you, Renee, for that feedback. So I just wanted to plug our next event, which will be a physical meetup in Kansas City on Wednesday, August 27th, from 5 to 7. We're trying to find a venue that is sort of the right space for maybe 15 or 20, how many people we might get to join. We are hopefully going to have a few join us from Nebraska and St. Louis. So wherever you are in the Great Plains, if you feel like coming to Kansas City at that time to meet up with us and network and just connect, we won't have any sort of formal presentation or anything. It will just be, sort of intentional networking and connection making and community building. And then, of course, Caitlin, I think, or between you and Beth, you've hopefully captured the list of everybody that's attended. And as always, we encourage you to connect with the like-minded folk here on LinkedIn and, continue the connection and build those relationships as you sort of mutually see fit and benefit. So thank you so much again. I'll stay on the line for a little bit longer if anyone wants to chat a little bit more, give a bit more feedback, but otherwise, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Are we good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your facilitation. It was great.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Michelle. Thank you.
Tricky
Thank
to
you
do
for
kind of
your,
virtually, but I think we had good energy there.
yeah, and for the prep, and just thank
Yeah.
you. You made it very easy.
For sure.
Nice job.
Good, thanks. So Beth, let us know how we get the recording, and then
And you want me to send that visual to who?
Oh, me, Kate.
Caitlin?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Caitlin.
and just you I put the email in the chat, but it's the ACMP Great Plain Comms one.
Okay.
Uh Here, I'll put it back in the bottom here.
Yeah. And Beth, have you got the list of everyone who came?
Yep, I am adding to it. I'm adding the chat to it right now. I stuck it in an email.
I was going to say, because sometimes it disappears with the Zoom, right? And so,
Right. I've got a list of everyone, and before I sign off, I'm going to stick the chat in there.
you mean copy the chat into an email? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
I was
what
like,
I
what
mean.
exactly do you mean there? But as long as we've got who
Well,
came in the chat, I think that's amazing. That was great attendance. That was honestly almost, that was a perfect size group.
Yeah, it was more than I registered,
I
correct?
know. I thought it was just going to be the board and the panelists and like Tam.
Yeah, no, there were a few people. So I only had like 7 when the last time you asked me for a head count. So that
Yeah.
was impressive when I pulled down emails this morning.
yeah, I think the last minute reminder that might have been helpful.
Yeah.
'Cause I know I always forget. I sign up and then I forget, and then unless I have that last minute reminder, I remember 2 days later.
Yeah. And that I haven't been much into that ACMP portal, but I know it's just archaic. Bye, Jennifer. Thank you so much. It's archaic and hard to navigate, and every time I go in, I have to reset my password for some reason. It's such a pain.
Oh
And
no.
so I know Tam was messaging me last night and then again this morning. So I told her, we're going to eventually have a website, but right now we're just decided to focus on building the community, and then we'll get to sponsorship, and then we'll get to a website. So this was a good step in that direction of building the community. And so, yeah.
It's working. Yeah.
Yeah, I see Tam made a suggestion for the August, which is so far from me, but let's see. I'll copy this suggestion here. North of the other one's kind of closer, Briarcliff. Good. All right. Well, I hope we'll get some feedback. We're not going to send a feedback form, are we, Caitlin? Or just
We didn't plan one for this one.
I know. I feel like it's so over, it's kind of overkill to do that, but at the same time, I'd love feedback, right? So what do we do?
Maybe I can do like just a quick Likert scale on just like a little thing, and then a comment box if anybody has additional.
Yes, and then attach the
image.
yes.
And I was thinking
And the recording.
just take the recording, and what I can do is I can snip it short, right? And so that if I think, are we still recording?
Oh,
So we
yeah.
don't have anything like this in there. And then I can send out a link. I can just put it into the YouTube for ACMP Great Plains Comms. And that way it's linked to that, because Google has all of that in-house. And we can just do that, and it'll be just for the people who have the link. So if you registered, if you attended, you get the link to the panel.
Can't we
So you
let
have
anybody who's in the chapter have the link?
Do we want to? That's
Yeah.
okay, we can do that.
I would actually encourage, let's either put this in the next newsletter instead of a separate email. Like,
Yeah.
just say thank you to everybody who came.
Yeah.
Here's the link to the recording. If you came, let us know your feedback. Just put it all in one email.
That sounds good. Yeah.
And then just do a link. Can we just put that document somewhere and just put a link to that document instead of attaching it to the newsletter?
Sorry. It's the end of a really long day. So you want it to be
Like, do we have a resources section on the ACMP GP
Let me
portal where we could
check.
put like a document library, right? Where we could put that.
I think we have
document.
something. Let me just open it up real quick. I don't have that open right now. I know we have the blog, and I've used that. Let's see, and I could make a blog post. Let me see if there's anything specific that's like a resources from our chapter. Otherwise, we can do a blog.
Yeah. And or we could just do the simple email to those who came,
Mhm.
and they are the only ones who get the printout. I mean, you know what I mean, the one
Link,
pager.
yeah.
And but I think the recording should go in the newsletter to everybody to show everybody that we've doing these events. And if anyone wants to pick up the recording and watch it, they'll see
Yeah.
it was
If y'all
available.
are good with that, then I'm perfectly good with that.
On that
Um,
note, with you as host, Michelle, is the recording going to show up on my end or yours?
Recording. I'm going to stop the recording.
It's still recording, so we
Yeah.
should